Just heard the Prime Minister say, look, don't vote Labour, because, I mean, why would you trust Sir Keir Starmer? He'll say anything to get into power. Well, that's a message that's going to resonate with a lot of people.
Look, I think we've put forward a good programme for the country. We published our 6 first steps last week on the economy, on the health service, on borders, on antisocial behaviour, on clean energy and on education. We'll have other policies to announce during the course of the campaign. Keir is a great candidate to be Prime Minister. We are looking forward to fighting this election and making the case to the country, which in the end boils down to one thing. Do you want to carry on with 5 more years of what you've already had, or do people want to vote for change with the Labour Party? And that's the case that we're going to make.
Were you caught off guard by the announcement yesterday that the general election would be on the 4th of July? Because it does mean now that you have a lot of work to do in 6 very short weeks. You mentioned those 6 pledges, but there's not yet any meat on the bone. We haven't seen a manifesto. There's also a number of seats where there's candidates still to select.
I wouldn't worry about all that. I mean, on the timing, I think it was interesting because the Prime Minister had been making this case that he had a plan, that it was working, the economy was turning around and so on. And if he really believed in that case, then he would have felt that the public should see the fruits of that over the course of the summer. So I think the timing is really interesting because it suggests to me that he doesn't believe in the case that he was making, that things are turning round and are going to get better. Because if he did believe in that, he'd want people to feel that over the next 6 months or so. And if he's not got faith in the case that he's been making, then why on earth should the British public? So I think the timing is interesting, and it suggests to me weakness, not strength.
I've got to be brutally honest, Pat. A lot of people watching, when you say, well, you know, you've got work to do, where's the manifesto, what are the details? And you say, I wouldn't worry about that. People are worried about that.
No, I was referring to not having candidates in every seat. We'll sort that out in the next few days. In terms of the manifesto, that will be published in the next few weeks. You want me to run through more of the policies? I'm very happy to do so. And we'll start with the 6 first steps that we published last week. The first is restore economic stability, to grow the economy. That's the foundation for everything else. And we want to make sure that people feel that growth wherever they live in the country. The second is to cut NHS waiting lists with 40,000 more appointments every week, 2 million more appointments every year, and that makes a huge difference to anyone waiting in pain for NHS treatment. The third is a secure border command, a new force with new powers to tackle this problem of small boats coming across the Channel, and unlike the Tories, a plan for the whole problem, not just for 1% of it. The fourth is to set up GB Energy, a publicly owned energy company, to help get bills down in the long term and improve our energy security so that we're not reliant on the international markets that spiked so highly after Russia invaded Ukraine. The fifth is to crack down on antisocial behaviour with 13,000 more police and PCSOs, restoring neighbourhood policing and cracking down on that problem, which is such an issue in many communities represented around the country. And the final one is to hire 6,500 new teachers to expand opportunity for young people and make sure that they're ready for life, work and the future. These are our first steps. These are our policies, and we're looking forward to talking a lot about them over the next 6 weeks.
Yeah, but you say these are your first steps. How are you going to get any of these in place if you win the election? You'll be lucky to get any of these up and running by 2029, won't you?
No, I don't think so. I think we can get started on these things right away. We're conscious of the economic inheritance that we'll inherit, but you know, we can't have a debate where people say you don't have any policies, and then when we say these are our policies, people just say you can't do any of that. These are our policies. This is the core of what we'll have to say. We'll have, you know, things to say about other areas too, like house building and in other areas of policy over the next 6 weeks. We've got plenty to announce and plenty to campaign on, and we are really looking forward to taking that case to the public, because we know there's a mood for change out there in the country. We want to make sure that when people look at the Labour Party, they look at a Labour Party that itself has changed and has got a good programme for the future of the country.
What are your concerns about the party's stance on Gaza? Because we saw it at the local elections, didn't we? You lost control of Oldham Council. That was a warning shot, wasn't it, to the Labour Party, that Muslim voters were protesting the party's stance on Gaza. And you must also be very concerned about the likes of people like George Galloway, Workers' Party of Britain, and independent candidates who are standing and very pro-Gaza.
Well, look, if there's voters in some places who say, I used to support you and I don't anymore, of course, we want to win those people's trust, but I don't think you should just change your foreign policy on that basis. Your foreign policy should be based on what you believe in and what's in the best interest of the country, and that has been what's informed our stance on this issue since October the 7th. And just on Oldham that you mentioned there, it's not correct to say this is all about Gaza in Oldham. There's some hyper-local issues there where the local election results in Oldham have been out of line with the national picture for a few years running. So I think it's incumbent on all of us not to leap to assumptions that whenever anybody's unhappy, it's automatically about Gaza. There can be other things involved too.
We are out of time. I just want to ask you very briefly, though, on this issue. Would a Labour Party in government follow the likes of Ireland and recognise a Palestinian state?
We do want to see a Palestinian state. Two things have informed our position since October the 7th. One is defending Israel's right to defend itself after that appalling attack by Hamas. But the second is a better future for the Palestinian people. And for us, that should mean in time a Palestinian state so that you can have a secure future for both the Palestinians and for Israel.